Alrighty gang, welcome along to the channel. Another piece of wisdom. This time we are looking at finding the midpoint of a line segment. So along the lines of our linear graphs and equations, sometimes we want to identify the middle point of a line. So the line will be a select length between select 2 points, and we want to find out what that length is. Now the first thing we want to be able to do with that is to identify what 2 points the line is behind. So you can see here, let's call this one down here point 1, and obviously that one up there is going to be point 2. Okay, now we need to know the structure of those points, or what those points values are. Okay, so any coordinate ordered pair always takes the form of the x value and then the y value. Okay, so for point 1, hopefully we can see okay that on the x line, so the x is our horizontal and the y is our vertical. If we take that directly up, we can see that that crosses our x-axis at -2. So for point 1, we have an x value of -2. And the y value, taking a look at that, take a look at that. If we take that horizontally directly across, that hits our y-axis at -1. Right, so we have a point of, so the value of that point, the value of point 1 is -2, -1. Point 2, same deal, no tricks. Okay, we want to take the x to find the x point, go from that point and take it straight down to where it crosses the x-axis, and for the y we take it straight across to where it crosses the y-axis. And that one, it crosses the x-axis at 3, and it also crosses the y-axis at 3. So they're the 2 points that we're using. Okay, and from that we would be able to find the midpoint. Now we'll scroll down and take a look at what that takes right now. So to calculate the midpoint between the 2 points, we just have to think about it in two halves or 2 steps. We want to think about, okay, between these 2 points, so it starts there and actually I'm going to do this one here. So let's say between here and here. Okay, so on the x-axis we're looking between the points -4 and 3, so that's -4 and 3. Then you might be able to go, okay, between those two, that sounds like it might be about -1/2, right? So it'll sit in around about here. And then in the y-axis, we're between those 2 points there. So we're going to sit, just about there. So that's that y point there is 5, and that y point there is -9. Okay. So we're looking for the 2 points directly between those. And when we've got both of them, when we know this one and this one, we just put them together to give us, as it shows us here, that yellow point, which might be a bit faint, the midpoint. Okay, but there's an easy way to do this. Here we may have convenient numbers that make it quick, but we can always put it into an equation to find the exact points. Okay, so I'll do it the easy way, then I'll show you just a slightly different way of setting it up. So we want to think about it as find the middle of the x2 points. So, and to do that, we just find the average of them. All right, so we're going to find the midpoint. Let's put the midpoint of x, and x1 is -4, and add that to x2, which is 3. Okay, and we've got 2 points, so we divide it by 2 to find the average. So -4 plus 3 is -1 divided by 2, or -1/2. You've already got an answer of sorts, or you could say -0.5. Okay, so that's the midpoint of x. Then the midpoint of y is equal to, we do the same thing. First y point is -9 plus the second y point, which is 5, divided by 2. And we get there, -9 plus 5 is -4, divided by 2. So -4 divided by 2 is -2. And that is our second point, our y midpoint. So the midpoint of this line lies at, we just substitute the x and the y points in, -0.5 and -2. Okay. Now the only way, the slight difference you might see that is that we can set that up, or if you write down your notes, something like this might be helpful, where you have x1 plus x2 divided by 2. Put a big fat comma in there, and y1 plus y2 divided by 2 again. Alright, and that's just taking these points here, or that, and putting it between our brackets. And it just might be something that you see every now and then. Okay, so we want to put the first and second x points in, add them and divide them by 2 to find the average, and do the same for the y. Okay. Once you've got that, you will have your midpoint. So our midpoint here is, as we said, -0.5 and -2. Okay, scroll down for something slightly different. Okay, slightly more challenging piece, where we have just a worded problem. Now I'm going to set this up as a graphically, okay, because I think it's just a good way to problem solve if you're not great, or you first have trouble with looking at things purely in a worded format. So if we think about this, let's give ourselves a pair of axes. That did not work. Insert, where are we? Give ourselves a pair of axes to play with. Okay. So, on the second day of a holiday, you've already driven 6.5 hours. I'm going to put time along the base here. Driven 6.5 hours already, 560k from home. You plan to drive 4.5 hours to a point 370 kilometers further from home. You want to break halfway. How many hours are you into the total trip, and how far are you from home at that point? Okay, so we've got time and we've got distance here, distance from home. All right, so there's still x and y intercepts. So first off, let's have a look at what we've got. So we're going to start at 6.5 hours, and we're going to drive a further 4.25. So that gives us 10.75. So maybe I'll go up to, let's just say that there is 12. That makes that 6, and we can put those pretty neatly into lots of 2. All right. The distances, so we're 500k, and then we add 370k away from home, and that'll give us 800, 930. So let's just make that 1,000 kilometers. Okay. Middle point there is 500, and then let's see, 1, 2, 3. There, 1, 2, 3, there, that's not bad, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so 100 lot increments. Now that allows me just to start throwing some graphical stuff in there. So we know the first point on our trip is going to be 6.5 hours away from home. So here's 6. That's 8, so we go here, and we know that we are currently 560 k's from home, which sits about here. Okay, so that's our first point. Now our second point that we want to play with is we want to add both of these to the initial hours and kilometres. Okay, so 6.5 plus 4.25 is equal to 10 3/4. Okay. And 560 k from home plus 370 kilometres from home is equal to 930 kilometres from home. Okay, so the next point will be 10 3/4. So 10 3/4, so that's 6, 8, 10 3/4 will be about there. So they're 2-hour increments. And then 930 k's, so that's 900 there, and we'll just put the 30 about there. So let's take that to here. Alrighty, and let's pop a line through there so it makes it easy to see. And we want to find how far we are from home. So in here somewhere, right about here, is our midpoint, but we want to find that exactly. Okay. The good thing is we know that these 2 points lie at 6.5 and 560, and this point lies at 10.75 for 10 3/4 and 930. So that midpoint, let's throw that into process. So the midpoint is going to be 6.5 plus 10.75 divided by 2. And then we have 560 plus 930, the endpoint, divided by 2. And then when we work all those out, it'll give us the midpoint. So the next line is 6.5 plus 10.75 is 17.25 divided by 2. And 560, so what have we got? It's 1490 divided by 2. So now we just have to halve those pieces. So we've just added the top two, halve both of those. So this will be our x point of the midpoint and the y point of the midpoint. 17.25 divided by 2 is, we've got 8 point. Let's throw that open to the calculator. My brain is not quite there today. So 0.75 is 37.5. So I think I've got that now. Okay. So 8.75 and 490 divided by 2 is 745. Oops. Okay, now how many hours? So it asks us how many hours and kilometers from home we are. Okay, so that's the midpoint, but now we have to put that into succinct, that's not into the context of the question. So we are 8.75 hours and 745 kilometers from home. And that's our midpoint question done. So just there, we can even put that in just to finish it off. 8.75 and 745. Hope it was helpful, gang. Any comments, leave them below. Click subscribes, like buttons, that sort of thing, just to give us some love. And we will see you next time. Cheers.